So our agenda for this evening is really highly introductive. It's really what it's about, is give you guys an opportunity to kind of hear a little bit more about how this process might work, kind of how we'll go about doing the effort, some of the resources that will be available, give you a chance to kind of ask questions about that, and then an opportunity for us to all learn a little bit about each other. So in the agenda, the way I usually do this, it's slightly awkward, but it's kind of nice in one way, and that's that I'll introduce myself, and if Phil wants to kind of introduce the project from the city's perspective and give any opening, welcoming kind of comments. And then I'll go through the project overview and project process and do a little Q&A, and then team member introductions. And it's a little awkward because we're all sitting together. In really large groups, it's less awkward. It's a little bit more awkward in a smaller group. But I do that just because I've discovered that giving you the benefit of hearing a little bit of what I'm gonna share with you might alter or inform what you want to share with the group. Because when it comes time for the team member introductions, usually what we ask for is, your name, affiliation, if you're a resident or if you're a part of a group or something like that, anything that you want to share that's relevant to that you think. And then just something about yourself, your observations about the sustainability plan, what motivates you to be engaged in it, what are you excited about related to it? Do you have any concerns? Just whatever you want to share that you think might be helpful for the group to learn a little bit about your perspective or your feelings. Okay, so that way going through the front end stuff can inform that a little bit. It might change what you decide to say. And then after that, I'm going to share with you a little overview of our community engagement to date, the survey that's out there right now, and then another opportunity for QA, and then we'll talk about next steps. So that's kind of our agenda. So with that, Joel, do you want to share anything?
Sure. Yeah. I'll do a. Hi.
So sorry.
No, that's
No problem.
Thanks for joining.
Perfect timing.
That'll buy me a minute to. I figure maybe the easiest way to give a little overview is to share something myself. Thank you. There we go. Oh, can I get you to stop sharing just for a minute?
Yeah.
And I'll share a few slides. So I'm Phil Groupie. I'm the sustainability specialist with Fitchburg. I've been here for about 4 years, joined right before everything shut down for the pandemic. So I got to do my whole introduction to the city, all the orientation, learning processes remotely, which was a really interesting way to go about that, but also gave kind of an interesting perspective on my role. The way that the people were interacting, the way that people were working was changing so much. So that's been a kind of a blessing and a curse. But I think probably what makes the most sense in terms of giving a high level overview of what we're doing and why we're doing it is this set of slides that we actually, I'm one of 2 staffers along with our environmental engineer, Ben Schulte, that reports to the Resource Conservation Commission. And every couple of years, the RCC tries to present to the committee of the whole. So that's essentially, it's just a longer form council meeting with council and the mayor. So RCC kind of wants to talk about what they've been up to, what they foresee coming up over the next set of months. And jumping back to the start. This one was from a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, that we talked about the idea of a sustainability plan. The RCC and some staff have been kicking this around for a while. One of the holdups was that, if you're going to bring in a consultant, if you're going to put together a plan, it costs some amount of funding. And so we had to make sure that council could allocate that funding for this process. The other one is that Fitchburg's actually done a lot of really cool environmental things and a lot of great things in terms of equity without having sustainability plans. So what's the case actually for going forward with a plan like this and, taking the time, putting the investment into it, as opposed to just kind of going the route we were already doing. Hi, Christina, thanks for joining. So we already have some good recycling programs, and we've been doing a lot with solar. We have a LEED facility. We've got several buildings that were awarded climate champion designation. We've got the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative that's really pushing to try to increase investment in historically underserved, underrepresented communities. So then why do we want to go beyond that? And so this is just kind of a high level overview. This is a this is a guidebook that helps us to actually document what we've done and where we want to go next. It gives us a roadmap. It gives us a set of priorities. Right now, how do we decide what to pursue next? Sort of what we think of. It might be what's germane, what's big right now, what are our neighbors working on, but sometimes it can feel just a little bit like whack-a-mole. If you're interested in sustainability things, there are so many possible areas you can look at. So how do you narrow that down? And the idea of having a sustainability plan is that it would help us to create that set of priorities and that guidebook. So we've got a number of things we've been doing back to, even before this, but 2008, we signed under the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement. We joined Governor Doyle's Clean Energy Pledge in 2009 to be a 25 by 25 community. So a number of things that go back quite a ways. And we have a number of plans that have something to do with sustainability. So land use and planning and transportation. We've got the comprehensive plan both of those, it addresses natural areas and resources. So the acronyms here, we have a comprehensive plan, we have a bike and pedestrian plan, a clean energy resolution is CER, HNI is the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. And then there's also an agriculture plan and a housing plan. So a number of different things, but nothing really looks at this from a high level. And we don't have a plan right now that addresses water and waste specifically. There's a stormwater facility maintenance plan, but nothing dealt with water and waste. No, we have a clean energy resolution, but not a plan dealing with energy, and not really anything that looks at all of this and wraps it up in this framework of how do we do this in a way that's economically persistent over time and that is also equitable. Because, as I mentioned, there are definitely communities in, all over, certainly in Fitchburg, where there has not been focus, there have not been resources given, there's not been access given. And the idea of the sustainability plan is we're not just looking at these topic areas here, we're looking at it from an equitable standpoint. If it's not benefiting everyone, it's not sustainable. Then it's a passion project. So that's sort of where this is all coming from. So about a year and a half ago, Brad will also get a chance to introduce himself, and Ben Schulte and I started drafting an RFP and went through a selection process. And I'd gotten a chance to meet Ted last year at a Sustainability Communities Conference in Dubuque, Iowa, and just really was excited about the stuff that Pale Blue Dot has done with other municipalities. So they were one of our respondents to the RFP process, and we got really excited about their plan. So now we're here. And hand that back over to Ted.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see, share again. Again, my Zoom skills being ridiculously challenged. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you so much. So super high level introduction of myself. So I'm Ted Redmond with Pale Blue Dot. My background is I'm a registered architect, still registered in the state of Minnesota, used to be registered in Wisconsin and a number of other states, but I let those registrations go because I don't use it as an architect any longer. But for much of my career, I practiced traditional architecture. The last couple of stints, I was managing a large practice. I was a managing principal for a large office in a global firm. And I always loved doing what I was doing, but I discovered that I kind of had a midlife epiphany that there was a lot of really, I thought, dumb short-term decisions that were being made for reasons that just didn't make sense. And I couldn't take it any longer. I felt too distant from the things that I thought needed to happen. So I gave my partners a heads up and said, I'm going to be making a change. I'm not going to be doing architecture any longer. I'm going to be doing something and I don't know what it is. Gave them a year, and over that year, I helped them transition, and I designed Pale Blue Dot with my partner, Colleen. And so our mission is to hasten a transition to a carbon-free economy. And we do that in a few different ways, but really when you boil us down, we are kind of a sustainability and climate action urban planning firm. It's kind of maybe a more mature way for us to start to describe ourselves. And we do sustainability planning we do climate action planning, and we do renewable energy planning. Usually at the scale of community, which can be municipality or county, or regional. We just finished up a 7-county regional plan. We've done some work at state level, and we've done some work with the feds, like as a technical consultant for US DOE on a few programs that they have. But really, we're municipal planning. That's really our kind of bread and butter, so to speak. We were founded about 10 years ago. We're just in our 10th year, just started it, well, about halfway through our 10th year. And in that time frame, we've worked with about 70 communities, creating energy, sustainability, or climate action projects of one form or another. Many of those being planning projects similar to this, not all of them, but many. And our work, we kind of smatter around a little bit. We've done work in 22, 23 states now, but really, when you kind of boil us down, we're sort of Midwestern. So Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois are kind of our heaviest hit areas. And so that's me. And we are super grateful to be working with Fitchburg and with a group like this. All of our projects, when we do community-wide planning, unless a community has some reason why they don't want to, we always work with a collaborative team like this, and it's one of the most rewarding aspects of our work. We really love it. It's fascinating. You get a group of people together that usually are very passionate and have different experiences, but you learn things from each other, and it's rewarding to recognize there's a lot of people that want to see good positive change. So thank you very much for participating. It is a little bit of an effort. We try to make it hopefully not too heavy, but it's definitely commitment. So thank you very much for that. We're appreciative. Okay, so why are we here? We probably know, but our project is to develop a sustainability action plan, as I've been calling our sustainability plan. We can kind of nuance what the name is. I added the word action primarily because I like the idea of action. It helps us kind of keep in mind that we're trying to come up with answers to what do we do. We'll see lots of plans if you look around. And it's easy to fall into. There's lots of plans where we might say things like support something. And sometimes that's okay. That's the right statement to make. But support is a statement that you then ask yourself, well, how do I do that? And so first of all, I think it's helpful to just kind of keep in mind we're looking to create actions. What can we do, steps that we can define. But and I also added it because SAP is a little bit easier, although it's sappy, so maybe that's not the right thing. But I like being able to call the team something other than multiple words. But anyways, so we're here to create a sustainability action plan for Fitchburg. It's intended to guide actions community-wide as well as for municipal operations. And the planning process that we'll be going through is going to help us to establish overall goals, as well as establishing strategies or strategic goals, as I sometimes call it, as well as actions to achieve those goals. So the next question that's nice to just make sure we're all on the same page with is, what is a sustainability plan? And Phil's really done a great kind of overview as to what that is. But basically, we're creating a roadmap to help guide actions. In these days, sustainability plans, when they're done at community scale, almost always also typically include climate mitigation and adaptation. It's such a prevalent consideration for us in terms of environmental impacts and our contributions that they're almost always included any longer. In fact, if I see a sustainability plan that doesn't address that, I wonder what they're thinking about. So the Fitchburg plan is anticipated to, not a problem. You haven't missed much of me battling yet, so. But the plan is going to address mitigation and adaptation. In sustainability planning, mitigation refers to reducing our contributions to climate change. So that means reducing our emissions. Adaptation is developing ways to help us create resilience. So recognizing we've got some impacts that are coming or that we're already dealing with, how do we become resilient to those is adaptation. So we'll be doing both. The plan is as a roadmap, we'll be addressing goals and actions across pretty much every structure of the city that we can think of. Very broad plan. So we've got many sectors, as we call it, not dissimilar to a comprehensive plan for those of you that might be aware of a municipal comprehensive plan. So we're going to be touching a little bit across all primary sectors. So it includes buildings and energy, transportation, land use, solid waste and recycling, also water, wastewater, flooding considerations, health and safety, so the human aspect of sustainability considerations, local food and agriculture, green space, trees and ecosystems, so kind of all things green, growy, or scurrying, and then sustainable economy. We usually suggest let's keep our eye on economic opportunities and also kind of how might we help guide sustainability and resilience around economy. In terms of that mitigation and adaptation considerations that I talked about, the ones on the top, when we put the filter of mitigation and adaptation also through this, the ones at the top are going to be our heavy lifters for mitigation opportunities. It's where our heaviest greenhouse gas emissions are. There is also adaptation considerations in those sectors. And when we look at adaptation, the ones at the bottom really have kind of the heaviest hitting opportunities for adaptation considerations, but there's some opportunity for mitigation as well. So typically a community-wide plan like this is organized around strategic goals or strategies with detailed actions to achieve the goals. And I'd like to just touch on this so that you can kind of start to anticipate what we'll be doing. So strategies are specific statements to give us directions. So it's a goal statement. Usually we want them to be as measurable as possible. Not all of them are easily measurable though. So, we'll end up with some undoubtedly that are a little difficult to put measurements on, but we'll do our best to try to always think, well, how can we frame this in a measurable way? Strategies, basically, you've got a pretty good strategy if it's telling you what the end picture wants to be or an interim picture. And it's okay if you read a strategy and you're left with the question, yes, but how? If it tells me what I want to get to, it's doing a good job. The actions then are the detailed items that complement and support the strategies. And a good action, when we're done reading it, shouldn't leave a lot of space for yes, but how. There might be nuance. We want to leave some nuance for folks that are implementing it to be able to kind of nudge and decide, everybody will be putting efforts into it. So having space for it to be refined is perfect, but an action usually wants to give enough guidance that the first question in mind is not, well, but how? And so those are just a couple examples of kind of what that might look like. So another question that is quite common is, well, what kinds of actions ultimately can we have in a plan? For a municipal plan, we're talking about not just municipal operations, but community-wide. A municipality is kind of limited. We can't just decree everything. So this isn't hard and fast, but I tend to think of actions falling in line with 4 sort of categories. The first is leading by examples. So the municipality, Fitchburg owns buildings and properties and parks, a fleet of vehicles and so forth. So we can do things and lead by example. We put solar in a building, we can change the EV. As we do projects, we can share what we've learned with others so that we're helping to inform our community. If we do something and discover that wasn't such a great idea, we can share it. We can also incentivize. So incentivizing can be kind of a range of things. I mean, there can be cash incentive. Hey, do something and we'll give you $500. Here's a grant, or we can give you, it's hard with a municipal. We'll give you a tax break on something. But it doesn't have to be about money necessarily. It can also be what can we do to make someone's life easier to make these decisions? Hey, if you do A, B, and C on your new building, we're going to, create a short-circuited building review process. I'm not suggesting that's an act, but it's an example, right? Where you could do something to try to help people engage in these kinds of actions. We can also advocate. And advocate can also be educating, so it's helping to get information out there. So advocating can be literally lobbying, like, hey, let's get together. There's like-minded cities, Madison and Eau Claire and Milwaukee all have climate action. La Crosse, we did their climate action plan a couple of years ago. There's cities in Wisconsin that are all aiming in the same direction, that want to see the same future. Maybe we stitch together and there's some kind of lobbying activity. There's something that we want to help the state get to, right? So advocating can be like that, but it could also be just making sure that we get information out to the community, education, resources, guides, that kind of thing. And then lastly, we can require. I mean, there are some things that can be requirements, whether it could be a policy. Like, hey, if the city of Fitchburg gives money to a project, we expect you to do A, B, and C in order to receive that money. We have ordinances and such, so those could also be tweaks. The city has contracts, with vendors or other sorts of agreements, utilities and such. So there is opportunity for require. I usually put that out there last, not because I discourage it, but just because in reality, in terms of a mixture for a community-wide plan, kind of those first three happen, or, it's probably ends up being the sort of bulk of the kinds of things that we do. And then requirements may come out, and they might be in the plan, but it'll probably be a lighter representation and very intentful, right? Where we can really do good work. The other thing that I'll say with that is that as a guiding plan, if there's going to be potential actions that might influence, staffing needs or financing needs for the municipality, or there might be suggestions that, hey, establish a policy, change your ordinance to do something, explore making an ordinance to do that. So anything that changes budget, changes staff needs, or could impact those, or might have a policy or an ordinance kind of impact, should be understood to have to go through its own process as it usually would, right? So just because it's in the plan doesn't mean that it automatically becomes, city law. And I like just saying that both for the team, and then I usually try to say that whenever we're talking in the public, so that people understand that, we don't need to get too excited about, ideas in the plan. It will go through the right process, right? Okay, so what we're going to ultimately produce is a few things. When we're all said and done, we will have a plan. It's a public-facing document, PDF kind of a thing, maybe printed out where needed. I try to discourage that, but we make it printer-friendly, right? But it's like any other plan document. It's a static document. Once you print it, you're kind of done. You can use it as a reference and so forth, and it can be shared in multiple ways. But in addition to that, we will also be producing an implementation matrix. And so the implementation matrix, all the actions and strategies that are in the full plan document are going to find their way into the implementation matrix. And that's a living, breathing document. So it's going to be an Excel file that we're going to provide to Phil and others who will actually be implementing the project. And it's a place where, it's going to be a searchable thing. So you can search by word and so forth. You can mix it, match it, filter it. And a place to track progress. If there's resources we know about, we'll stick them into the matrix. And it's intended to be living so that as the plan gets implemented, it's a place to park, hey, this thing's underway. We're going to start doing this next year, whatever. So it's trying to become a piece of a living plan. The last, well, not necessarily the last thing, but the third sort of main component that we'll be producing is an example database of policies or ordinances. So I talked about how, well, there might be some things in here that we as a group say, here's a potential policy or ordinance. I don't have any hobbies. Our work is my hobby. So I try to find ordinances and policies. If I see something cool going on, I stop what I'm doing. I go put it in my database. And so we don't have everything, but I try to have everything. So if you guys, by the way, if you ever run across a cool policy, let me know. But what we'll do is when we're done with the plan, we will kind of tailor that, our database, to kind of try to chunk it down to the sorts of things that, well, either this is specifically something that the Fitchburg plan is talking about, or based on the intent of the plan, here are a few other things that you might be interested in just seeing. And the intention here is that because a new policy or ordinance will have to go through the right process of, its own process to become a thing, we know that, planners, when we start looking at doing a policy, one of the first things we want to do is, well, where else has it been done? Maybe I can contact them, find out why did this work? Would you do something different? So we're just trying to give a boost to the city for implementation. If you're interested, at least for the core plans, not all this stuff is on our example page, but if you're interested, you can look it up on our website there. We've got an example page, so you can kind of get a sense of what at least the full plan ultimately might have in it, or the kinds of things, I should say. And this presentation will also be available on our team page, and the links should function, I hope, in the PDF. Okay, so the purpose of this team is to help collaboratively co-author. You're going to help co-create the plan. So I think of it as really we're a facilitator. I mean, we'll end up making the pretty plan when it's all said and done, but the intentful ideas in it are truly fully co-authored. And that's really the opportunity and the role for this team. And so that means supporting and helping to review, refine, and prioritize the goals or strategies, and also supporting and reviewing, creating, and refining the actions that we create to support those. And then also supporting and helping us kind of identify what the Fitchburg community might need to be empowered for implementation. And that also relates to where might challenges be, for people to understand some of the issues. You guys live and work here. That's a really important role, is just to kind of help us understand what's going on in the community. And then lastly, this is not at all, none of these are requirements. This is a voluntary team. Thank you so much. But the last item is even most optional, and that is, there's also, I think, a great opportunity to help support in communicating the resulting plan. By the time this is done, the planning team will be intimately familiar what's in the plan, because you will have been a co-author to it. There might be some things you bring to the table and end up not being in the plan, and it'll not end up in the plan for good reasons, and you'll know why. Like, yeah, I thought we should be doing this, and it's gonna be a better thing for us to do in 10 years or whatever. So you will be well suited to help just share the information. So whether that means joining up at a city council meeting when they're thinking about it to share your thoughts about it, or sharing it with neighbors, community groups, other organizations you're involved in. Again, that's not a requirement, it's just an opportunity. And I think an important opportunity for the team to contribute yet again. The other thing that I like to point out is that I am absolutely 100% certain, even though I've not met anybody yet, that everybody on the team will have significant opportunity and contributions. Planning efforts like this are broad, and I usually find that some folks come to the table feeling, rightfully so, that they've got expertise around many topics, and they do. Others may come to the table thinking, I don't really have any expertise in any of this stuff. And I'm here to tell you, everybody has expertise that's going to be contributed to this project. Because everybody is here as a part of the team, because you love your community and you want to see something better. And that alone is an absolute assurance that there's going to be great contributions. And I can say that now with extreme confidence. As I said, we do this with every plan that we do as a community. We've worked with, I haven't counted them, but I think we're now in the thousands of team members. I have yet to find one person that wasn't a valuable team member. So thank you again for participating. So the process that we go through, kind of boiling it down, I'm not entirely sure if this graphic does it quite yet, but I think we're getting closer. So there's three kind of phases of our work typically. They're not necessarily equal in terms of time span. The first phase is we do kind of existing condition research and documentation. So our baseline documents, we call them. And we're trying to just turn over all the leaves that we can and kind of get as much data as we can put together. And that's where we have just finished that up. So right now, we are now transitioning into the second phase, which is working with a collaborative team, with this collaborative team. And that's where we will now decide, what do we do with all that, with that information, and what kinds of goals and strategies and actions are appropriate for Fitchburg. And out of that process, we'll end up with a draft plan. And then that draft plan will go into the third phase, where we'll make sure it gets out there for public review and input, and then we'll refine based on that input. Along the way, down at the bottom there, those orange bars just illustrate that we're also going to be having community input process beyond this collaborative team. So we've got a survey that's been open now for a couple months, and we're going to keep it open for as long as we can. We'll also do some community meetings that'll happen in the first quarter. The stuff that we learn in that community sessions will be bundled up into a little package and shared with you all, so that you'll get the benefit of whatever they happen to say. In fact, we'll share all the comments in an appendix. So if you're interested in reading survey responses, you can definitely do that. We'll also try to boil it down and say, oh, those 300 comments were great. This is kind of the intent that they seem to be, the themes that are coming out of them. And oh, by the way, here's some specific statements, ideas that maybe you want to take a peek at. So we'll try to digest it for you and then give it all to you. And then once we're done with the draft plan, we're going to repeat that engagement with the draft plan, so that we'll put an opportunity for folks to give input to the plan online, so that folks have access to it 24/7. And we'll also do some community meetings to share the draft plan and give people in person and or Zoom opportunities. So that's our overall process. The baseline documents that we have produced now, we've got 5 baseline documents. There's 4 foundational ones that, and what I mean by that is they're more sort of kind of researchy based. I mean, we know rocks that we want to go touch and turn over, and then we're collecting information and putting them in the documents. And so those are the vulnerability assessment, the greenhouse gas inventory and emissions forecast. You can also think of that as a consumption inventory, because we're looking at how much electricity do we use, how much waste do we generate, how many therms of natural gas do we use, et cetera, how many miles do we drive. The third is a ground cover survey or study, kind of looking at from a satellite, what's our community look like, how much tree do we have, how much ground cover that's impervious, that's dark, that's light, that's grass, it's native grasses, et cetera. And then a renewable energy potential study. Those 4 foundational documents then get summarized into our sustainability baseline assessment. And that baseline assessment also then, we've added, there's a few more bells and whistles on research that we put in there, but then we organize it by those sectors that I shared earlier on. And the intent there is that way you don't have to read 300 pages worth of content. All of it's available to you if you want to. Some people love to dig into stuff, but you don't have to. What you can do is you'll be on some sub-teams and you can just read a couple of sections in the baseline and you'll get a kind of a summary overview of what we've learned. And in that document, we have starter goals, because we've discovered that it's nice to work with. That we started off with our collaborative teams like, hey, what kind of goals should we have? And we found that it took sometimes it took wheel spinning, which is fine. We discovered that if we threw something out on the wall and said, please, here's a fat marker, say what you like, what you think about it, what you like, what you don't like, what's missing. And so that's what we'll start off with. We're going to put some ideas out there, which are just starter conversation tools. They're kind of like, well, if we were doing the plan in a vacuum, like if the community didn't actually exist, they're probably the goals that we would do because they make sense to us, but it's a place to start. So you'll find those in that baseline document. And that's their intent, is just as a place to start the conversation. So the planning process is a collaborative, multi-stakeholder team. This team that really is going to be co-authoring the plan. We're going to break into sub-teams. So everybody will have 2. Well, we've got the 8 topics we're anticipating. Everybody will be in 2 topics. And that'll allow us to break into breakout groups and everybody will have a place to go and nobody gets pulled into multiple directions. And so we're gonna have 7 meetings overall we're anticipating. We're here at the first one, which is introductory background. The next one is where we're gonna start talking about the goals. Between now and then, we'll give you access to our baseline documents and the one that's got some preliminary goals. We'll ask you to read the 2 sections that relate to the topics that you sign up for. But in January, we'll start talking about this. What do you guys think about those goals? What's missing? What do you like? What do you dislike? And then the workhorse of the meetings, the sort of 4 in the center that are we label workshop, are very much collaborative. This one is, I talked too much in this one. The next meeting, I'll talk a little bit less, but still a lot because I want to make sure everybody has the benefit of what's in the baseline documents. So if you haven't read it, you still get a starting point. The workshops are going to be almost entirely the team working together in breakout sessions. So a very collaborative exploration that will facilitate and help you kind of know what to do. The last meeting, we'll just share a draft plan and that'll start the review process. Just a little kind of business taking. So our team meetings following the all except for the last one. The last one may be in person. We'll take everybody's temperature and we'll see what works best. I usually suggest in person for the last one because it's kind of fun. Like, hey, you look really good. Yeah. The meetings between we're anticipating being in Zoom because we found that attendance can go up. It will make it typically more convenient because we'll have some shared documents that we can use. People can put comments in between and also at the meeting right there. I'm typing stuff and I'm talking, and so it tends to work pretty well. We tried doing hybrid meetings for those and they were a miserable failure. So that's why we tend to do them in Zoom. So what that means is that everybody will need access to Zoom. You can do it on a mobile device. It's possible. I do not advise it if you have access to a computer, laptop or desktop. It will just work better for the kinds of things that we'll be doing. But I've had folks that, iPads, what they've got for it, that's okay. We will be working in shared documents between the meetings and at the meetings, largely Excel spreadsheet that's going to be shared through OneDrive. So you'll be accessing it online. So you don't have to have Excel on your computer or your device. You just have to be able to access the internet. For the shared OneDrive content, I have definitely found that a laptop or desktop is definitely better. It can be very difficult on a mobile, doable, but very difficult. So everybody will ideally should have access to a computer, at least between the workshops. If that's a challenge for anybody, you can just let me know. We'll find a way we'll figure it out, right? So we're not going to want to let that keep somebody from participating. So one thing that's very important, and that is that, as I say, there's going to be shared documents both in Google and in Microsoft. The lion's share, the most important, most critical, really are going to be Microsoft. You should be able to access it. When you access it, if it asks you to set up an account, it's lying to you. Or you already have an account that you forgot about. I've had that happen to me. I've got multiple Microsoft accounts and it knows and I don't, So in particular with Microsoft, if it's asking you to log in, it's because you have an account somewhere. You don't have to buy anything to participate. So if it's starting to take you down the road of, hey, buy an account, you don't need to do that. If you have troubles, let me know. If you're going to access this on a work device, there might be a firewall issue. So just test it out. After this meeting, you'll have access to a sign-up sheet that will be an Excel document. If you can sign up for the sub-teams, we're good. If you have a hard time, if you can't access the sign-up sheet, just let me know. If you are working on a device that's shared or from work, talk with your IT person just to see if maybe there's a firewall kind of thing. Okay, so the tools that we'll have to help kind of facilitate the team. The first is the foundational documents that I just talked about. We will overview them in a little bit more detail at our next meeting. You'll have access to them immediately following this meeting, so you can dig into them as deep as you want. The other core tool that we have is this document that we call the Action Finder. It's an Excel spreadsheet. I've indicated I have no hobbies. It's got like 5,000 actions in it now. We will cut out a lot of that stuff. But so when we see a new plan come out, we kind of peruse it. And if sometimes it's like a community in a new area or a community that's, that's the whole plan is a really interesting thing, or maybe some actions that are kind of cool. So communities are in there for lots of different reasons. Sometimes it's because, hey, that's a good size. It's a good size, similar to Fitchburg. What are they doing? You know, or it's another Wisconsin, or it's an Illinois community. What are they doing? And the reason why we have this is that, again, under the theory that we've discovered that collaboration can often happen when we get something to react to. You know, like, wow, that's the dumbest thing. And we don't want to say it about each other. We can say it about them though. Anything anybody here says is intelligent and wonderful. Anything that's in that document is fair to say it's dumb. But it gives us something to respond to think about, like, because like maybe right now I'm thinking, I don't even know what an action should look like in a plan. You glaze through a few of these, you'll start to get a sense of like, okay, I see and I like what these are doing. These things leave me befuddled, you know, like, so you'll get a sense as to kind of your own sense of what you think is important. But the document is searchable. So it's an Excel spreadsheet. So it's got limitations, but it'll be organized by strategy and by detailed action. And not every plan that we find is organized that way. So sometimes strategies are missing, or sometimes it's actually a strategy and so it doesn't really have an action. So there's some some variation to that. But ultimately, when you have access to this, you will be able to search for a keyword or a key phrase. And the limitation is what will happen is the cell that has that in it will turn blue or green, depending on whether you're searching for a strategy or an action. And then you got to scroll to see, oh, did anything pop up? So it's a little awkward, but it will get you there. The other thing that you can do is you can filter based on like, what community did this come from? How big is the community? What year plan did it come from? Is it a community-wide kind of action or a municipal operations action? And so you can filter based on some things like, hey, I want to look at what La Crosse is doing. Great. You can filter on La Crosse and then search for words, or vice versa, search for words and see if La Crosse did it. So it'll be searchable. And then lastly, each of you will have a column, 2 columns for both of your teams. Your name will be there. And you can, if you find an action that's intriguing to you, you can save it. So there's a column where you can just type in save. If you got an idea like, hey, this would be a lot better if we did whatever your comment is, you'll have a way to comment on it. You could recreate it. You could reword it if you wanted to. And then what I find is usually what happens is people start getting inspired as they start seeing some things that they like and some things that irritate them, or like, why isn't anybody talking about whatever? You can create your own in the document. So you can either do it under your name or at the bottom. So it's a place for us ultimately to see what other folks are doing, get inspired, have a place to write our ideas, and we can see each other's work at the same time. So it's a collaborative opportunity. You can start seeing what your teammates are thinking also. The sort of third component that we'll have is screening criteria. So of course, some of the actions, when we're all said and done with looking at potential ideas, we will have too many. We'll have, I don't want to say how many, it'll be a lot. And we'll look at ourselves and say, that's too many actions for us to put on a plan and look credible. And that's okay, because a lot of them are going to be repeats or like, eh. So then our next step is going to be to whittle them down. Let's get to the ones that we like the most. And so part of that we can help contribute to say, well, from what we've seen, this is going to be high impact. This one maybe not as quite a high impact, but we can also review them against criteria. So we've got a database of criteria. Not every plan out there uses selection criteria, but if we see one, we add their criteria to our list. So we've got 20 or so example criteria. If you think a criteria is missing, you can just let me know. But we'll have a little Google form. You guys can go through the example criteria and vote on the ones that you think are meaningful to you. Like, hey, you know, we'll limit you. We'll say, hey, pick 3, and then we'll see what happens, you know. But together, we'll use that criteria to take our draft actions and then just kind of do a gut check. How good could this action work against those criteria. And actually, in reality, what I actually find to be most beneficial is we have an action, we say, hey, this criteria A is really important to the group. We read this action, we say, how would it perform on this criteria? And we might say, not well at all. And then we might be inspired, well, what if we just change how we word it? What if we say, we'll do this instead? So it can help us refine our actions, more importantly. So the other tools that we have here, we have a team webpage set up. It's password protected. We password protected because it's going to have access to that action finder, and we do not want somebody in the public to accidentally delete all your work, or you can just envision the weird things that can happen. So we don't want that to happen.
Quick, I did try to go there using this password. I wasn't able to get in.
Oh, okay. I'll double check.
Okay, I just cut and paste the password. It let me get to this website and ask for the password, and then it wouldn't said error. So I don't know.
Okay. I'll double check it. I'm gonna send out a follow-up email, and I will double check it on mine, and if I can get through, I'll send it out. No, I'm sure it's not, but I'll send out a follow-up email. You'll see it come out tonight. And then if it still doesn't work, just let me know. We'll tinker with it to see what's going on.
Ted, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So for the spreadsheet that we're going to be looking at, is it, do we as a committee have one copy of that, or is it a shared spreadsheet in that regard, or we each have individual copies?
So what it'll be is we have one massive document, and then we whittle it down to communities that we're thinking might be beneficial, and then we're gonna break it by sub-team. So each sub-team will have one document. They don't cross between the sub-teams.
Sure.
That way, just in case if somebody accidentally does something to it, we don't lose everything. But it will be a shared document. And so it's an Excel spreadsheet that you'll work online with.
Mhm.
The disadvantage is it's a little awkward working on an online spreadsheet. The advantage is that you can type something in.
Yeah.
And your teammate can see, oh, that's an interesting idea, or they can feedback, or like, oh, and then it brings something up in their mind, right?
Yeah, it's a subset of functions, and it's a little quirky relative to Excel as an app, so.
Yeah, I regret that I hope that they work that out.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of, for those of us, I'm an Excel geek. I love Excel. I dislike online Excel. But
We should start a support group.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would participate.
Is there an issue using Apple?
There shouldn't.
There shouldn't be. I've had. Yeah.
No promises, right?
Yeah, no problem, only because, so my partner is an Apple person, and I'm, whatever you call this, a Microsoft person. And we collaborate, but I'm actually the spreadsheet person, and she's more kind of outreach content and stuff like that, so it tends to work. But I will say almost every single team tends to have Apple people on it, and the only person that had a problem was somebody who was trying to do everything on an iPad.
Okay, no, I have a
And-
desktop.
Yeah,
It should be
so
okay.
it should work. I had also one person that ended up, Excel wasn't quite working, but I think that was when they were trying to get it on their computer, but when they did the online, it worked just fine. So
Okay.
it should work just fine. As long as you have internet
Yeah, I do.
and you're doing it online, it should work okay.
Okay,
And if you run into an Apple thing, let me know, and we'll see if we can navigate. We try to navigate around issues, but so far it's worked.
okay.
Will be in the links and all that on an email.
Yes, yep. I'll send a follow-up email that kind of goes through next steps. And we'll have links to the page and so forth. So I just will call your attention to the web page itself. So it's got document downloads. So those baseline documents that I talked about will all be available to view right there on the page. So if you're just looking to flip through something quick, you can do that. You can also download them. That little blue box there in the corner is a folder. You click on that, it'll go to a shared folder that you can download all the baseline documents. There's a couple other folders in there that I'll share with you what that is. But we've got some team resources. We've had some things like people ask questions and sometimes it's informed us to say, let's do a little thing. So we've got a piece on there about carbon sequestration, grass versus trees, that's been a question. So we put something in there. We've got some educational content just in case, it's of interest to anybody. We've put together some infographics that we've also made available to the public webpage, just in case, if you want to share anything with, folks, groups you're involved in or whatever. Each of the team meetings you'll see has a place on the sidebar on the right-hand side of the page, kind of below where I've cut it off. Each team meeting is listed. The agendas are on there. If a presentation is made, the presentation will be on there. Tonight's is already up. And if something's produced specific, like once we have our criteria, for instance, it'll show up on that meeting and so forth. So usually if we go through something on a meeting, it usually gets linked there. So that's what you can find on the webpage. Because it's password protected, I do suggest that you bookmark the page and then have your computer memorize the password once we affirm that it works. Just so that it's a convenience for you. So, any other questions at all? I'm happy to go through anything. Oh, I see a question back here and then we'll.
So did you send more than one email? I had one email about taking off a while ago, but afterwards, I'm not sure I got any follow-up. So I was wondering whether I missed,
Oh, like with the links?
Yeah.
You're sending that after this meeting?
Yeah, I will have a follow-up email that came out. Do you have all of the meeting invites that have that shown, those shown up?
That did not show up.
Okay, well, maybe what we'll want to do is wherever the sign-in sheet is, if we can just make sure I get your name and your email address.
I did get the first one, but
Okay.
then there was the content of that email that you will send the invites at the calendar link.
Oh, and so you
I
did see those.
Yeah.
Did you look in your spam folder?
I
when you
did, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I did.
all right,
Maybe you could write a note.
yeah, if you can put a note next to yours that says, I'm the one that didn't get.
Yeah, we
I
can-
don't know that I did either, although sometimes I get email delete happy. Cause I get so many. I got the first one, obviously, but, maybe I deleted it, I don't know, but I didn't get the agenda, was that on the first
This was
one?
part of the invite.
It was in the invite, yeah,
Oh,
so.
okay.
The decoder ring is that, so hopefully everybody got, meeting invites for each of them. Which, depending on what you use for your calendar and whatever, will hopefully actually show up right on your calendar. But in the little information panel for that, the agenda is linked. When we have Zoom.
Impact with that. Goals, I think some of the challenges are definitely budget and all of the needs for these projects, that, you have so many competing interests when it comes to these projects, and how do you communicate the importance of this sustainability aspect with these projects? The police station is probably a very good example. You do space needs studies and you have all of these, these space needs that you need, and there's a lot of cost to that, right? The square footage is cost, and then how do you, and then you look at your budget, and then suddenly you're over budget, and what do you cut, right? And how do you make sure that the sustainability component of that is not what's cut?
I'm Joe. Professionally, I work at UW-Madison. I'm a business analyst, project manager. I'm a change agent and a group facilitator as well. So I wear many hats. In a nutshell, I help people solve difficult problems. And there are, of course, lots of those at UW-Madison and any other organization for that matter. My wife and I moved to Fitchburg about, 7 years ago. We live in Swan Creek. She and I are collaborating on the very idea to eliminate every blade of grass in our yard, and we're actively pursuing that. My background, I lived in Sun Prairie for many, many years. I served on the school board for a term there, helped get a lot of referenda passed around new school buildings and so on. I was also deeply involved in stormwater management, water management, with the Public Works Director. We led an opportunity for Girl and Boy Scouts and 4-H folks to go around to every storm drain in the city and put don't dump drains to creek. And so we covered the whole city in 2 weekends, and that was just awesome. What triggered this is I was out riding with my son at the time. He was 2 years old. He was on the back of my bike, and we saw a man pouring motor oil down storm drain, and I
Did you run into him or just?
No, I went to check my son, actually, so, yeah, so that really was the trigger for that, but, I have to tell you, I'll say this publicly, I love my wife, but my mistress is, the prairie that runs around two sides of, Swan Creek. I pass it every day, winter or summer, whatever, and if I always go the same way, I realize that my neck is cranked this way because I'm always looking at the prairie. I'm never looking at the houses that are over here. I don't care about any of that. One last thing that I do is, I strive to harvest, mature, wild, parsnip seeds. So I'll go along and cut off the heads and put those in a plastic bag, so the plant, invasive plant, doesn't propagate. So
And have you gotten,
I'm making progress.
well, I meant, the bird, all the.
Oh, no, so the plants are basically dry at that point in
Okay.
time. I do wear gloves and long sleeves, and I just go along with snippers and cutting them into a trash can with a bag on the inside, and it works perfectly.
Okay.
Much easier than digging up a tap root about so long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my son did that, and it's a sad story.
Have to be very, very careful with that stuff. Thank you.
You think you wanna share again at all?
I mean, I could give the whole bio. It's been a long life of being interested in environmental things. I thought I was gonna be the next Jacques Cousteau and realized that position wasn't needed. And then I was gonna go into environmental policy. I actually spent 2 years out of undergrad doing outdoor environmental education. So walk around in the woods, point at things, tell kids what they are. Oh, just was living the dream. And it just kind of felt like, I could be doing something that has a little more immediate impact. This is great, but at best, a small percentage of these kids are gonna really make an impact environmentally 20 years down the line. I want to see more progress now. And two things really shifted me from just environmental work, because I could do that in any number of spheres, into sustainability specifically. One was an animated documentary narrated by Annie Leonard called The Story of Stuff, that I'm sure several of you have seen. And she talks about the interplay between our economic consumerism, and the impact that has environmentally, but also the impact that has on marginalized communities, and the way that we are extracting resources and extracting wealth from areas, and then dumping our toxins on them. And that overlap between needing to improve things environmentally and needing to improve them in terms of equity was huge. And the next one was specifically a presentation that first did it for me from Michael Schellenberger and Ted Nordhaus, a couple of longtime environmental leaders that wrote a book called The Death of Environmentalism, kind of why the environmental movement needed to reframe the way it was going. And this has since been echoed by things written by Van Jones and Robert Bullard, and a presentation from Carolyn Finney, a phenomenal Kentucky professor. But the whole idea was that environmentalism and environmental progress is not shared equally. It is typically a passion project of people who have resources already and who have benefited from this environmental extraction already. And especially thinking about the way that Michael Schellenberger put it, where the people who are often preaching, and I think there is a lot of admirable sentiment in the zero population growth, but a lot of the people preaching it are typically the ones at the top of the economic food chain. And the people who are at the bottom, well, they're the ones who need to grow now. So if you do your ecological footprint, all of us probably take up anywhere from 2 to 5 planets equivalent each. And the people who are creating the most growth in emissions right now are the people who are trying to catch up to us in terms of amenities, and we waste a lot. We are absolutely consuming more than we need. And how do you draw that line between the essential and the frivolous? And how do we get to a point where we support people rising up and capturing that essential? And so just kind of, I knew I was gonna work in environmentalism, but these tensions are really why I'm more in sustainability, that absolutely it's about environmental progress, but it can't just be a passion project of people with resources already. Why I'm excited for this plan is I like to think that I could work myself out of a job someday. Because Linda, if this is stuff that everybody is always thinking about, if every time we go into a project, we're starting by saying, how do we make sure we're preserving resources? What am I doing anymore? Like right now, I want to speak to these. I want to, lend my voice as much as I can to make sure that the city is more sustainable, to make sure that the city is considering all aspects of sustainability, the environmental, but the economic and the equitable. But this is a pipe dream and it's probably not realistic, but it's a nice thing to imagine that if I do my job well enough, at some point it will just be ingrained and I'll, like the Lorax float off in a better mood, obviously, than he did. But maybe more like Mary Poppins.
The anti-Lorax or something.
The anti-Lorax, right,
Yeah.
right. But yeah, that's the hope is there are just so many things that I feel like I need to weigh in on this with the city and there's just not enough of me. And I hope this plan gets us closer and makes me more efficient at what I do.
And it certainly will make all of us better citizens and everybody we talk to about this, as well as the actual plan itself. And that is how you change a culture, right? You do.
That's right. Yeah. Influence, educate, inform, nudge. Wonderful. Thank you very much. What an exciting team.
I'm glad I took a few notes there. I apologize. I've been recording the meeting and when my computer shut down, I hit record again right after and it didn't actually take. So I missed most of the introductions. Those didn't get captured, which I'm very sad about. I'm glad I took notes so I can better match the names to the faces going forward.
So I wanted to just kind of, in the last, we're gonna end up on time. I swear to you, I'm good. Later than 10:30. But I just wanted to give you a highlight overview of the engagement, what we have anticipated for engagement and an update on the survey. So we've got 2 rounds of engagement and the screen is not working too well. Sorry about the screen. But the round 1 has a survey that's out. It's been out for a couple of months. I'll give you in just a second an update on what we're hearing so far. We're going to keep that open as long as we can in order to still be able to bring it to you, kind of the content of it. And we'll also be doing community-wide meetings. It'll actually kind of emulate a little bit of what you hear tonight, and a little bit of what you'll hear in the next meeting, and then give folks who attend those meetings an opportunity to also give us their ideas and input. Tell us what they like, they don't like, and so forth. Once we have our draft plan, we're going to repeat that stuff. But now in the first round, we're really looking for open-ended, like tell us your feelings, your thoughts, your ideas. The second round, clearly, we're happy to hear anything somebody wants to tell us, but we're gonna try to get input on the plan. Here's a draft plan. We want your input on it. What do you think? How could it be better, etc. And there we go. It's not very responsive for some reason. So as far as a quick update on the survey to date, so this is not a final by any means. As of this morning, we have 472 responses. The respondents, I'll say actually, this is we've got 5 active surveys, community-wide surveys going right now. This is the only one that has the category of youth from 26 to 39 that are proportionate. So go Fitchburg. Everybody else, we're like, we got to get the 25s and, we got to get everybody up, everybody under 40, we need responses. But actually, and we're happy to continue to get responses from all age groups, of course. But anything that, if you guys know groups that are, like the under 26ers, access and getting the word out or whatever, that'd be awesome. Because if we can boost that group, that'd be great. It's the only kind of age demographic that maybe is a little little underrepresented yet. In terms of ethnicity, we're at about 92% Caucasian. So we could definitely use a boost of BIPOC participants. So again, if you're involved in any groups that might have, BIPOC participants or NOAA folks or newsletters or anything like that, we've got some resources to help spread the word. So if you know of ways of getting the survey in front of folks, it would really be helpful because it'd be great to see those numbers, at least, at the very least, we'd love to try to emulate our demographic shares here at least. Let's see, as far as information and how folks feel informed about sustainability based on self-reporting, we've got some folks that say they're very aware, some folks that say, no, not very aware. Nobody's saying they're not at all aware, which is good, but that illustrates that, hey, as we're thinking about these, how might we inform folks, educate folks, get information? That actually looks like they're even in a self-reporting way saying, yeah, that could be useful. In terms of climate change, we're asking in the survey how concerned they are about climate change. 92% of respondents so far are moderately, very, or extremely concerned, with extremely being almost 45%. 3% are not at all concerned, which, by the way, does not necessarily mean that they don't believe in it. It may be that I'm not concerned about it. I think we're going to be okay here in Fitchburg, so that doesn't mean that they don't care necessarily. Or they may say they don't believe in it, but only 3%. That's actually that's also the lowest number of any of our surveys ever so far. So go Fitchburg. In terms of the question of how important is it for Fitchburg to take action to increase community sustainability, and it doesn't say actually in the question, but also as well as resilience to extreme weather events. Days basically the climate change impacts. 88% of the respondents agree that the city of Fitchburg should take action so far. And that's either agreeing or completely agreeing emphatically. When we ask the question, is it important for Fitchburg to take action to reduce GHG emissions? 89%, it goes up by 1%, agree or completely agree that it's important for the city to take action. When we ask, should Fitchburg be a leader when it comes to proactively addressing community sustainability, 84% agree or completely agree that Fitchburg not only should do these things, but should work towards being a leadership position. So that illustrates a lot of support so far for the work that this team's going to be doing. So that's great. So I mentioned that it'd be awesome to get more input. First of all, if anybody on the team has not had the opportunity to take the survey, please, if you're willing to take a moment to take the survey, it'd be great. We'd love your input on the survey as well. If you have access to groups, whether it's a religious group that you participate in, or your neighborhood association, or community group, or whatever, work group, any group that you would feel comfortable, if you would like, it'd be awesome to help spread the word that the survey's out there and encourage participation in it.
I also have some little flyers here if you'd like to take a couple and distribute them anywhere. They've got a QR code. People can scan that and fill out the survey. So
Yeah, could you
Like the minis.
link on the email too that you sent to us, just to make it easy for everybody and to remind people to spread it?
You bet. Actually, we've got a little social media kit that has access to that flyer. It has access to a starter newsletter content. So if you're part of a group that has a newsletter, you could copy and paste and change. We've got some social media posts for anybody that does that kind of thing. And we've got these little graphics. So down on the bottom there, it's a social media kit link here. On the email, you'll see that. You can find the social media kit here and it'll be linked.
Okay.
But just as a little teaser, so if we want to be the per capita response leader, at least in Hilda Dott's book, we do survey every single community we work with. We do a survey. If we can hit 573, Fitchburg will replace Elgin as our per capita leader. So just so you know, we can crush Elgin.
my goal's been 1,000 since the outset, though. I still think we can hit it. That's a 3% response rate. We can get 3%.
Yeah.
If we can do that, you guys will be the undisputed leader for years to come, I think. And then someday you might get an email from some, because if we beat Elgin, I'm gonna send them a friendly email that just says, you guys, we just
Sorry, you're
crushed
not on
you.
my slides anymore.
Fitchburg, yeah, I'm sorry. Fitchburg crushed you guys.
And these kinds of things I think are really important to the council too, when you get to that point where you're asking them to pass a plan, they want to know who wants it done.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's
good
awesome,
point.
being great goal.
Yeah, it's very important. The other thing that we do is we're collecting emails. We are not gonna spam folks, but people who take the survey, we will let them know when the draft plan's available and we'll hope that they'll want to take a look at it also. So the more we can get to take the survey, the better.
It's also a strong argument for so many different reasons, but that we want to get the representation up on the survey. If we can even get better representation in this group, I think we have some solid representation that I'm glad to see, but it could still be better. Fitchburg is, I think, just 72% white, and the percentage is higher than that so far, both with this planning team and in the survey. Definitely, I think that would also be stronger for council if we can say not just a number of people weighed in on this, but a number of people that represent the city, the entire city.
So youth and BIPOC, we can get, I mean, we want to hear from everybody, so that don't discourage others, of course. But if you have any access to youth and BIPOC, that's gold.
Was that
What about putting the flyers in the utility bills?
That's a good idea. We can definitely look into that.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, I went around to a number of businesses. I was like, I know they have like bulletin boards here. And every time I went to one, it's like specifically for nonprofits and community orgs. And I didn't feel right, like having the city post something there. So I haven't found a lot of places publicly to post it, but
Isn't the
that's an
city a
option.
not-for-profit?
it is. I don't want to abuse it. I don't know. I'm
Sure.
overly cautious probably,
Okay, yeah.
but
That's a great idea.
Sometimes it's good to break rules.
That's right, yeah, yeah.
I'll learn that someday.
Intent can make a difference with that, kind of. Yeah.
And Trace, what did you say? Utility bills?
Yeah.
So just one last opportunity for today's meeting, just to see if there's any questions at all, any of the stuff I just read through or anything else.
I was wondering, sorry, before we're split into breakout groups, and I had no idea what this is gonna look like, so is there gonna be, I wonder if there's an opportunity just to kind of brain dump all different ideas that can be kind of handed off to their respective groups, like if I'm not in the solid waste group, but I've got the answer everybody's been looking for, but I'm not. I don't know, what did that? Yeah.
What we can do is, that's a great
Yeah.
point. And so there's, the advantage of having the sub-teams is that it'll allow everybody to dig in really deep on a couple of topics. Without having 10-hour meetings, so it's just, that's, the disadvantage is that there's a lot of people that tend to have like, I'm interested in everything, So, one thing is that through the meetings, there will be opportunities to kind of give input, but, we can also, the, Action Finder, tool that I talked about, actually, well, we're gonna start off first on our next meeting, we're gonna start talking about, our goal setting, the goals. Those documents will be shared documents. And what I'll suggest is after the sub-teams have the ability to kind of put their thoughts on those documents, they're just gonna be Word document. You guys can type what you think. After that, what we could do is say, if you're interested in looking at the other teams and adding comments or thoughts, feel free to do that. Don't delete anything, of course. But, write your comment that will make it blue or green or whatever, to make a new color so that we can see, oh, this is another team member from another sub-team that's got a thought. So we can make that a thing. And on the Action Finder, what we can do is for each sub-team on the Action Finder, we'll add a column for other team member. Just so that as, the sub-teams are looking at ideas and putting in actions and so forth, if you've got thoughts, it'll be shared. So like everybody that's not on the sub-team would be on the other category. But that would offer an opportunity also to actively participate in those. The meetings themselves are set up such that you kind of need to stay in the track only because it's hard to be in two places at once, right? But I think with those, and then when we get to a review stage, the whole document is available and you can continue to provide input. So I think those will give you opportunities to give input on the goals. and also on action ideas too. That's a good point.
How does that work with the Zoom link then? Like, you start out as a group on Zoom.
Mhm.
The host can split you into
Oh,
separate meeting rooms
Yeah.
and then bring you back together.
Okay.
That's actually a great point. Can you pull up a breakout? Does your,
Let's see. You know, I haven't done it before. I'll have to look into
so,
it.
what will happen is, so usually on Zoom, down in the bottom of the, screen, usually there's 3 dots like other.
Well, you've probably got it right now because we've got you as the host.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, that's only something.
Oh,
else
I'm
can
share
do.
screening, yeah. I don't think I can show.
But yeah, we have a way.
I think
to-
if I show you Zoom, we all go into some sort of like alternative universe and explode or something.
Yeah.
The host can split people into rooms and then can also end it and bring
Well-
everyone back.
What will happen is actually you'll be invited to select your own room,
Okay.
Oh.
so that everybody can self-select. And you'll sign up for teams. And then we'll do a breakout and I'll say, okay, it's water and whatever. And then you'll have an opportunity. Usually it's a note that shows up on the screen. Otherwise, there's a little down the corner, usually 3 dots that say other, and you click it and then select a breakout. And then you can select from the available rooms. And if somebody has a challenge getting into a room, I can always nudge somebody in. So we'll get you into rooms, but it works pretty well and then it's timed and it'll say, there's a little timer up in the corner and it'll say you got 50 minutes or whatever. It'll count down for you. And then when you're down to the 1 or 2 minute mark, it'll come up and say you got a minute left or 2 minutes left.
Okay. All right.
And then we all come swirling back into the
Right.
same.
Are you gonna assign us or do you want us to think about which ones you want?
Yeah, I'm gonna, that's actually, what our next steps are. Again, on email will be coming out. For those of you that have not gotten, I've realized, hey, I could pull up a Word doc and you can type in your email address so that I don't accidentally do it wrong. But so we'll try to make sure everybody's getting an email that's working. So you'll get an email tonight that has all the next steps outlined. Usually there's a little bit of to-dos between meetings. Between the workshops, it's a little bit heavier than the to-do will be here, but usually it's about 4 hours. That's what I've heard from folks. Some people will dig in deeper. That's awesome. If folks have the passion, time and interest, you can dig in as deeply as you want. I've had some team members spend a lot of time. That's lovely. But spend the time that you're able and interested to do. Typically, the homework is maybe about 4 hours within that month. So hopefully it's doable. For the homework for this month, between now and our next meeting, which is January 9th, the first thing is sign up for your interested sub-teams. You may not get the sub-team that is your most passionate. If the list is full and you think I should really be on this thing because of, just let me know and we'll see what we can do to work out. We try to make right now, if everybody signs up for something based on the number of team members that we have on the list, it should work out, which means that not everybody can have necessarily everything that they're interested in.
So you sign up for 2, but if you'll only be in one at the end, right? So.
No. So what happens is, they're organized in 2 groups.
Okay.
So you'll see there's one that's a green group,
Mhm.
group 1, and group 2 is a reddish group. And they're organized at the top is all the green ones. There's 4 topics there. And then down here is the red group and there's 4 topics there. And so you pick one topic in the upper
Okay.
4 and you pick one topic in the lower 4. And then when we do breakouts, we're gonna do round 1
Okay.
and everybody goes to their round 1 topic. And then we'll come back together, we'll share a little bit, take a break, and then do round 2. And so that's why we do it that way, so that we're trying to get as much exposure to different topics where you can dig deep.
Okay.
And also organizing it so that nobody's bouncing around or split in 2. The next piece of your homework is, once you identify the topics that you want to settle in on deeply, if you can please review the baseline assessment document that's linked there, it'll be linked in my email, for your 2 topics that you're signing up for. You can certainly review the others. I'm not discouraging it, but if you can at least read the sections for those, that'd be great. And it's not too much. Some of the sections are about 13 pages, many of them are 4 pages. So, and all that's intended to be put together is kind of hopefully a quick reading through. And I'll reiterate, the intent of that is just simply to provide some background information and preliminary goals. All of that is up for your interpretation and guidance and feedback. So nothing's being forced into the.
Is there a minimum and maximum size of the teams? Or if you've got, everyone says, we're all doing this one and.
Yeah, we definitely, ideally, it's nice to kind of have a balance. So like if we were evenly split, that'd be great. But like 4 or 5 people on a sub team, it's nice to have, So what'll end up happening, if we end up with a team that's underrepresented, and the chart right now has just enough so that if one of the teams maxes out, if everybody on the team signs up for 2 topics, some of those teams are gonna max out. And the intention is to encourage people to pick another topic. Because we do want to keep it balanced, as balanced as we can. And recognize that if there's some passions you have, I think the point's great. We can find ways so you can get input on everything, right? So. The last item is if you are interested in spreading the word, there'll be access to the toolkit. If you have an email group that you're part of or a favorite coffee shop or whatever, if you're interested and willing, that would be superb. Be really lovely. So our next meeting is January 9th. It will be via Zoom. Before the meeting, I'll send out a reminder about a week or so. It'll also have the Zoom link again. But if you have access to the webpage, if you can explore the webpage up there at the top, and it'll be in the follow-up email. If anybody has access problems, let me know. But otherwise, if you can get in there, you'll have the key to the world. You'll have access to the agendas, which all the agendas have Zoom links on them. So.
I think it's the climate action survey different from the Fitchburg sustainability survey, or they're the same thing?
No, they're the same thing. I may have had a problem. The survey is the sustainability survey.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
It's worthy of noting that the password is pretty long there. I'll send via email.
It is kind of long. That's awkward, isn't it?
It is.
Maybe I should change that.
That's true. That could be important. couldn't it?
And thanks for pointing that out. It is actually not that. It is in the agenda, and I do that only because I try to protect the team. I've not yet had problems with people from the public going in and creating havoc, but I'm always concerned.
They will come.
That's right, and I don't want it to be Fitchburg. So, but it's in the agenda and it will be in the follow-up also. And I tend to put it in all the emails like passwords and just as a reminder. So it's, what is it? Ditch.
Fitch says 2024.
Yeah. I don't know. We just make them up. Awesome. So that's our story.
Yeah.
Any final questions? I'm sorry, we're 10 minutes over. I tried.
I just have a couple housekeeping items before people head out. Ted brought some swag here if you didn't get a chance to get a little notebook or some bags. There's also those flyers I mentioned. You can grab a few of those and some kind of sustainability plan FAQs that I had printed out for some tabling earlier this fall. I think everybody signed in on this sheet back here. If you didn't, please do so. The last one, the city does not have unlimited resources here, but if you have concerns about meeting times and the time commitment, especially with things like kids needing babysitters or access issues, please let me know, and I want to try to find a way to make that work. That might be especially the case if we would still take some more team members. I think until the start of the second meeting, once we're there, we really want to be established. But if people would like to participate and have any concerns about that commitment, I can't promise anything, but I'd at least like to be able to talk to them and see if there's a way that we can work that out. Because we really do want to make sure that people are not left out of this if it's something they're interested in. So yeah, if you know people that would like to join and have not yet, feel free to send them my way and we'll look into that. Thanks again for all of you for making this commitment, whether you're here in person tonight or on Zoom. I really appreciate it. We could have tried to do this just ourselves by the staff, but it really wouldn't. We've got blinders, and it's going to be nice to have members of the community help us put this together.
So my one last statement before we break up, anybody who's had, has email concerns that you might not be getting stuff. If you're in the room, if you wouldn't mind, coming and typing your email here to make sure that I don't mess it up. And anybody that's on the Zoom meeting online, same thing for you. If you feel like you're concerned, you may not be getting the content. If you can write into the chat box your email address so that I'm certain to have it written properly. I will double check before we send out the follow-up email tonight. All right.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
to both of you. This would be-
How do I,
Green group, right?
how do I get